Thank you, Rafa and the desk. It was great to hear you guys on what went wrong in Game 1 for the side of TSM, but also what went right for No Org. And honestly, that's the thing. We have been talking and praising No Org for so long because they have been such a dominant team, and how they got to play exactly to their win condition in that first game, Coco.
Of course, and the other thing too that the analyst desk mentioned is that TSM Academy has Sword, and they should use Sword a lot more than they did in that game 1. He did make some plays. He did play a little bit greedy here and there. That slight micro mistake in the mid lane, as we've all mentioned, was a slight hiccup that really took No Org to win that mid lane convincingly. But another piece that Kelsey did call out was that she expected No Org to be able to take over the game a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than was really portrayed. And I'd have to give a lot of credit to how Yursan was able to stall the game out a little bit in the bottom side of the map, and of course Sword once again in the mid lane for finding ways to control side push management and really make sure that the team fights were in a place where No Org had to second guess themselves on different objective contentions. But with that, all of that in the past, now we have to look to the future, and with the forward presence that No Org had in Game 1, we'll see if TSM Academy has an answer going into Game 2.
Well, TSM Academy have elected to stay on blue side, so we're not swapping sides at all. And okay. I do believe, I want to make sure I'm looking up the statistic correctly for when teams swap sides. It's not necessarily the best. We have, I think, when they don't swap side, it's 3 wins out of 11 games when not swapping. And so they have a very low win percentage when electing not to do that. However, on blue side, if they stay on blue side, it's about a 50% win rate. 3 of those games have been by No Org. 1 of them have been by the side of TSM Academy when on blue side after the next game, whether swapping or not swapping.
Sure.
So you're having this whole identity for the side of TSM Academy. They felt like they could still win staying on blue side. They're more practice on this one. But No Org still get that counter pick, and that's what's got me questioning it.
No, well, when you find out that No Org through the course of Tier 2 and Tier 1 so far in UGP, their win rate on blue side is more than 75%. Oof. I think you need to make sure that you have No Org on the red side. Sure, counter pick is very important, but the fact that so much of 11.4 meta plays into No Org's favor, and that they don't really require counter picks, a lot of their team members are very flexible. Viper is super flexible, as we saw, with the Callista pickups and with being able to pick up fighters and tanks. We have Fire as well, so it's like they don't need the counter pick. They'd rather have that priority to pick to make sure that Anda gets the pick of the litter of those junglers. Speaking of, we are going to be having a rinse and repeat salty run back in the jungle nonetheless.
And the support.
Yeah, and the rel. So it's something where it's a little bit of a bummer because we requested changes and adaptation, but we're already seeing the first 3. Now make it 4, make it 5 picks. God dang it! We wanted changes.
That's why I was flipping through my notes there. I'm like, oh no, this is not what we wanted. This is not what the desk asked for. This is not what we asked for. We wanted adaptation changes. Why bother changing if you're No Org? Go for the same damn draft.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? For No Org, but nonetheless, the counter argument is of the micro mistakes that had happened in TSM Academy. They had been able to stall out different parts and different elements of No Org's oppression and progression through the early to mid-game stages. They were able to catch us off guard. If you take out some of those micro hiccups where, Babip losing first blood against Viper's Callista in the top lane, some other pickups here, some awkward transitions and finding fights where No Org has already had a prepared 4-1 with TP advantage against you, and so on and so forth. If you take those out of the equation, then you give TSM Academy a little bit better, more of a fighting chance, but also a little bit of a switch up as well, as Callista is now taken away from No Org. It was pretty traditional throughout the rest of the pick ban. As we mentioned, it has been a salty run back for a while until that switch.
Yep,
and
that's
just go
kind
back
of
to
what
salty run back. Okay.
Well, no, it's no longer the salty run back because there is the change, and Lucian's now picked 2 to go up against 5 Fire's Orianna. So, okay, no longer having that. And Lucian can be flexed. Same with Gragas. I actually do like this adaptation coming in from TSM Academy. We've started seeing Gragas back into the mid lane. It's been a long time since Gragas was able to dominate that mid lane, but he has been slowly working his way throughout the meta into that lane once more.
Yeah, he has been. It hasn't really been too good, though. it's something where he can neutralize the lane. Like, Gragas is just there that no matter what matchup it's going to be, whether it's Orianna or Aatrox, you can say, you know what, this lane is not going to get out of control. He's going to have a lockdown, he's going to scale into a tank, and either Haunter is going to be able to pilot or Sword. When we go into question of, well, who's going to pilot the big boy, it's going to be Haunter. Like, there's no way about it, and that's what's a little bit awkward with that adaptation. I appreciate it. It's not really a flex because Sword would prefer the Lucian. He's also been a very fun and very big advocate of Lucian in the mid lane, and it's a great change up into patch 11.4 that hasn't really seen a lot of daylight until now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see because we've got a lot top, like you were mentioning, top lane Gragas, and that's really what Haunter has been able to play a lot more of. That's just kind of in the flavor of the month. Not as much in the jungle, not as much in the mid lane, not as much even as the supportive role. It's much more about the top lane. But I want to see how TSM Academy are going to be able to play around Sword, as you were talking about and as Alk Battery was talking about on the desk. Sword, I want to be put in a position where he's going to be able to flex his muscle, really show off his skills, especially going into something like this, where you have Lucian who wants to have early lane domination to be able to help out Babip when he's trying to see if he can go for those skirmish fights against Anda.
Last time we saw Sword pilot the Lucian as well was actually the very first week of Academy 2021 Spring. He was piloting against Cloud9. Didn't really have a good end result, but he still came out with an even KDA on that Lucian, going 3 kills for 3 deaths. So nothing too impressive, not something that you're going to say, well, he might be able to carry, but it's something that is promising. It's something that, hey, against a very oppressive lane of a Zoe that has a lot of good zone control, once you get to that objective point in the game where she's going to be able to just throw out those sleepy trouble bubbles, if he's able to come out even on top of that and is able to pick up some kills on the backside, that's a big bonus. And it also plays more and more into what we want to see out of the new edition of Yursan, out of Babip, and this proactivity around mid lane. Sharpen this Sword. Get him to where he can literally cut no org to ribbons, where Haunter can then be the pilot, be the captain, who will help push the rest of TSM Academy forward into a victory in this second game of the series.
The side of no org, they still have Anda onto this Olaf, a champion that he has liked playing a lot throughout his history, and someone who can really effectively help out these skirmishes to be able to battle against Sword early on, as he's not going to be able to reliably kite back quite consistently enough to be able to escape from Anda. And if this Olaf can stay on top of him, if they can maybe bring in Big to be able to rotate around again before your son's able to do that, that is the moments of strength that we could see coming in from No Org. But this composition is a bit different from what we normally see out of No Org. They tend, to be more of that win lane, win game kind of style, and sure, they have some elements of that. But they also have far more of a team fight-oriented composition here, wouldn't you say, Coco?
It's a little scrappy. Sure, you've got the front to back going on, but Viper is still going to be playing the flanker, is going to be looking for that 4-1 split style with either 5-Fire or Viper being in that offside lane and creating those TP plays coming in, and then, of course, Big being that roaming power player. The only real thing that screams team fighting is Big and 5-Fire, Orianna, and Rel. It's like, hey, look, we can condense everyone into a death ball. People all being conglomerated, all having a wombo combo. Ooh, like me with my very little analysis in the middle of the game, in the middle of a team fight, prefers it when everyone's just getting beat up by one single Orianna ball. Like, that's great to see because I don't have to be nitpicky or anything. So that's where the team fighting presence comes into them, where it's like you look across the side and say TSM Academy, it's like, well, they've got to find some flanks, they got to stretch out the fight a little bit more, they got to be a little bit scrappy, they got to give Cody some breathing space, some Sword some breathing space, but they have the tools to go with it. And though it is a little bit more untraditional and unfamiliar from what we are used to seeing, like what No Org's comp is like, it still has that team fight capability to take over those situations where they can then snowball fairly effectively, and they have some great early laning phase to boot in that mid lane.
So while we have a little bit of time trying to get into the game, just taking a little bit of a pause here. So I was just kind of looking at some fun stats, across the different leagues for different builds, and one that I came across that I thought was kind of funny was seeing Gragas top lane go for Everfrost's mythic. Can we see that? Yeah, is that going to be the thing?
We could. Yeah, Everfrost did get buffed in patch 11.4, and we've been seeing it in a lot of different styles and ways. Like, of course, 5-Fire would pilot it on Veigar. He would go Everfrost, Veigar. We've seen Nico Everfrost. We've
Twisted
seen
Fate too.
Twisted Fate Everfrost. I've also seen in a solo queue game of mine a Nunu Everfrost. So like the item is strong. Though it is something that in this situation, in this game, I'm not too sure about it. Just because you need a little bit more of that survivability against the Shred and the Tear. Though, hey, if you just go Everfrost straight into like a tank item, or say like into trying to think of really what you try and pair that with if you're going for tank. I don't think you do. I think you just go straight AP and just sort of pray you don't get absolutely bursted out by 5 fire and value.
Right, I feel like it's kind of a similar build to like the Night Harvester build, but not like exactly that way. Where Night Harvester you can flex around and get a little bit more danky. This one's much more like you're gonna be about that. But I also kind of like the idea of it with an Udyr, since run sudden job done, and you immediately can then root them right afterwards since they're not gonna be moving. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm wondering if it's even going to be that, or if they're just going to try to opt for more of a tanky build and utilize the mixed damage like Kais is able to bring to be able to be that damage dealer threat that doesn't have to really make it so anybody is going for AP against a pretty squishy side on No Org, since Olaf and Aatrox are going to go for Gore Drinker. They're not really going to be going super tanky. They're going to be tanky-ish, but not super tanky as we jump into the game. Oh, we are a little bit further into the game.
We have to play pickup.
It does seem like nothing's really happened, thankfully. Yeah, looking at everything, it looks like both of them starting on the bottom half of the map, not really trying to trade things back and forth. Just a little bit of vision control from both sides, but nothing starkly interesting.
No, and there was no late invade coming in from No Org either, so it is a fairly traditional start for both TSM Academy and No Org. I'd actually give that favor over to TSM because they can play more well-rounded and they can play to that stable mental that they need to have to recuperate in this second game. And not to mention, we're already seeing Sword having a sharp blade already, oppressing 5-fire, dropping him to a 3rd health in this lane at only level 2.
That's kind of what happens. And if you are 5-firing your Orianna, sure, you want to be able to, get close to the minion waves and try to see if you can clear. But Lucian, his strength is in this laning phase. It's how he's able to play and dodge around those skill shots that Orianna is going to be able to try to utilize. So as long as Sword's able to do that and finesse it perfectly, 5-fire should be forced underneath this turret at all times. And this is why I was talking about, I want to see how Sword and Bip are going to be able to team up together and try to see if they can skirmish against that of Anda, since it is an Olaf, and if you can slow down his roll earlier on, that's always going to be best.
And with Bip getting the winner's draw on this Rift Scuttle spawn, Viper has to check to see if he's going to be up on top of it. And you could potentially double scuttle here for TSM Academy. You have that mid lane prio. You would have to be a little worried about the positioning of where you are starting that scuttle, because look at the priority that No Org has with value and big. They can look to try and collapse. 5-fire is going for a recall now, so when a ward is dropped in this river, he'll be able to TP to it and try and challenge with a four-man attack. Though Bip has already started tearing it apart. He has Smite to take it away.
Nice.
Rift Scuttle is
secured. You got the undertow though.
Stolen.
Stolen by Anda. Might have to flash over the wall though to be able to survive. As you can see, a little bit of a split fight coming in from the two sides. Anda should be able to show up to be able to help out, since your son has to be careful that Paramet's going to be able to get the knock up into the air. He's going to die to first blood, giving it over to the side of Anda.
And because of the proactivity coming in from No Org, with 5-fire getting the earlier TP to try and challenge Sword in that mid lane priority, with Anda also winning the 50-50 smite, not really a 50-50, sort of a surprise from the bush onto that scuttle, the rest of that priority from the bottom lane that Value and Big were able to accrue pinched down onto the members of Bip and Yurson, and was able to pick up first blood in 4 minutes of this second game.
That's so unfortunate for the side of Bip, because I did think he had it. I thought the smite was his, and it was just slightly out of range for Anda, and that's why I was like, oh, he's got it for sure. And that's why you were holding your breath like, no, not necessarily. And since it went over to the side of Anda, he also got first blood. It's going to give the skirmisher a bit more strength trying to fight against Bip. And with Sword having burned TP into the bot lane, I want to see No Org pressure this. They know that that's down. What plays can they make on these side lanes now? Can they get Viper into position to be able to dominate the top lane? But if Sword's able to get a 1v1 fight against 5-fire, that could be great. He flashed for it to be able to take him down. As Ando is a little bit too late. Undertow going to be able to connect, trying to see the slow down. Dodge? No, it's not dodge down. He's going to die. It's going to be a trade of 1-for-1. Undertow, wrong way. Wait a minute.
No.
Sword.
Ooh, let's go.
Nicely done.
Well played from Sword. See this rookie starting to make waves in this second game of the series, because it's what we've been really hoping for throughout his entire development as a rookie, as a young talent that TSM has been putting through their gauntlet. finally being able to really take it to Firefire, who is this renowned amateur player who's won 2 scouting grounds already. We're going to have to take on that moment as Big is also caught out.
Pulverized. So much damage. No Ferromancy over the wall this time. They're going to give over that kill to Cody-san. Easily takes it down with that last auto attack. And that time around, not going poorly for them while they waited for the proper person to get the kill.
All right, making some recovery here for TSM Academy, able to catch back up in the economy discrepancy, as well as also being able to find a couple kills for their carries. So this will help push them into that jungle priority for this dragon. Yursan and Bip are already on that one for themselves because of how much pressure has been won over by the TSM Academy roster. And from here, No Org is going to have to say, you know what, let's make amends. Let's try and focus onto the top side of the map. Viper going in for that very deep TP to make sure that he has priority for this Herald that will be spawning in just a couple of minutes.
They got to make some sort of play on the map. They have to be able to answer back what TSM Academy have been able to gather for themselves and be able to win out in these lanes. And this is something that's great to see. Like you mentioned before with the rookie of Sword, how he's come out and he's trying to flex his muscle, trying to be able to prove himself against the king of proving grounds and scouting grounds in Firefire. This player that's been able to win consecutive years in these amateur circuits, to be able to go to scouting grounds, to be able to prove his worth many, many a time.
Been unfortunate for No Org having to get on the back foot here for them, but it's a great recovery for them as well, because now it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge for No Org, who now is on this back step to say, okay, this is how we are able to play from behind. Let's look for these recoveries. Let's get back into this game and make sure that going into the middle stages of 15 minutes, we're going to be able to try and, again, force that 4-1 split and force TSM Academy to play our style once again, because I'm going to touch back at the very beginning of the series. TSM Academy and No Org throughout the 2021 season has played familiar styles, and No Org has just been the better and more well-crafted version of those situations. So now being on that opposite side, that other side of the coin here, TSM Academy in the driver's seat, let's see how well they're going to be able to expand their early leads. Because like I mentioned, history does tell a tale, and stats also tell us a story that even though they do also get early leads just like No Org, they haven't done it as effectively as their counterparts.
Sorry about the delay. We just are having a couple of issues. Hopefully, going to be able to get them resolved fairly quickly. But it gives us a bit more time to be able to kind of dissect this game. And you're already kind of talking about how it's a similar style between the two teams. But this is a bit uncharacteristic out of No Org. Normally, by 15-minute mark, they have that 3,000 gold lead. It's just one of the things that they've been able to do for themselves throughout all of the proving grounds. And this time, it's not going to happen, unless a miracle can really come for them. It seems like TSM Academy are in that proper position to be able to contest them around all of these objectives, around all this mid-game pressure they normally are able to carve for themselves. And with this, No Org, since they aren't usually put in this position, need to pretty much go and figure out a new play style, a new game style. And I'm just curious on if they're going to be able to do that at all with what they've drafted for themselves. And this is why I mentioned before, they have a pseudo-ish team fight that's a bit uncharacteristic for what they normally do.
Somewhat. It's mostly seeing if they can try and get some side wave control and side wave priority, because already with the performance that Sword is dishing out on that Lucian in the mid lane, they know that mid priority is lost. So what they need to try and look for, and what you sort of saw with the story being told with Viper getting that deep TP into the top side of the map, is saying, look, we're going to look for Rift Herald, and we're going to be using Rift Herald for that next dragon to win ourselves that mid lane priority, so we can go ahead and try and contest that objective. Or for the other side of the coin in that argument is saying, let's break open one of these lanes, put Firefire into that lane so we can sort of catch up and get some economy back into this Orianna to prepare for those untraditional team fights that you were teasing, Magical. So at that stage, it is a little bit of an adaptation, but it's not too far from familiarity for No Org. They've been in these situations against other competitors. Barrage has put them in these situations before. Zeus put them in this situation before multiple times, and we know how that ended. So it's something where if TSM Academy can replicate some of Zeus' performance in the mid game, where they force this chaotic discrepancy, where they read the signs of how No Org is setting up this macro and this map state, and say, hey, we see you doing a 4-1, we're going to force a team fight here, or hey, we're going to force a 3-2 situation instead. That is where TSM Academy can really make some waves crash into that mid-game performance. But Magical, look at timer. It's only 8 minutes in, almost 9 minutes. They've still got some room to work with for both TSM and No Org to make their claim into that mid-game here.
They got time to be able to work with, even though you are seeing a swap up of lanes. Cody-san and your son going topside to try to see if they can play around.
This is what I was talking about, Magical.
Yeah.
This is something that's like, hey, let's create the chaos. Let's not let Viper try and look for this Rift Herald priority. Let's make this lane swap now. So we have your son and Cody-san on the top side. Your son, who has been starting to stretch out and sort of, what would I say, unlock the leash that is Cody-san on this laning style, and then start looking for picks with Babip and Sword respectively. All he needs to do is just make sure that they can go ahead and get that vision control for him to roam and prioritize this Rift Herald. And with the reset, with the swaps coming in, they might just continue playing that mind game and switching these side lanes back and forth.
Yeah, as Value and Big show their faces in the top lane, we have recalls immediately out of Cuddy-san and Your-san, and look at that! Already pathing down towards the bot lane. They're not letting NoOrg have any idea, but unfortunately, it might be at the cost of a couple of plates. And so this is what they need to be able to try to stop or be able to get something else. Can they get this pick onto Viper? Can they make this play since there isn't actually an objective on the bottom half of the map?
I like that you bring that up. It's the fact that Tristana can still push these turrets fairly effectively, but look, Your-san is already finding a pincer maneuver onto Viper. Babip is also there as well. They could look for a turret dive heal. Your-san is not level 6 just yet. Okay. But let's see if NoOrg... The NoOrg is definitely seeing all of this coming to fruition. They were able to catch out Babip, most likely.
Nope.
And this could just force, like you mentioned, those turret plates being taken away from the top side here for Value and Big to go over and get them for themselves. And also, during all of that, like that priority that they were able to get, Babip was able to get the Rift Herald as well. Sorry for that. I don't think that we were able to see that during the hiccups and slight delays. So with all of that, they are going to be able to win this turret race as well.
Right, you're trying to turret race against, though the Rift Herald. I'm wondering if it's going to be close, because it is still a Tristana, keep in mind. It's like trying to race against a Zig. Ziggs and Tristana kind of cheat, so it is going to be first turret over to the side of TSM Academy, and we'll be able to get a second charge out of Shelly. It's going to be a trade of turrets, most likely, and I want to see what NoOrg will do from here. How they're going to be able to try to keep up with TSM Academy, who are playing a style that is very reminiscent of seasons of old, where you don't actually ever try to lane, you're not actually trying to fight. All you're doing is pushing out these side lanes to get a lot of gold, so you have earlier full-on team fights at like minute 15 or 20 as opposed to waiting it until like 25, 30.
Yeah, so a slight, and being able to get 2 turrets on the bottom side of the map and only 1 here for NoOrg on the top end does eventually win over for TSM in an economic value, because that they were able to get 2 turrets for the price of 1, and it was multiple members, 3 members being able to pick up gold on those plates as well, and they're able to get dragon control to boot. So overall, just an absolute win throughout the entirety of the map state for TSM Academy. And like I mentioned before, with how Zeus was able to take over NoOrg and create this chaotic state in the mid-game, we want to see TSM Academy try and replicate that, continue to put Sword in these lane matchups where he's able to just completely out-mechanic and outplay Firefire or Viper respectively and oppress them. But NoOrg is reading those signs and saying, hey, let's just put Big with Firefire.
Now, Firefire using Shockwave trying to clear out the minion waves, less likely to actually look for the full fight, but going back to the point that's being made, that was a total of 5 objectives taken by TSM Academy within the last few minutes, compared to only that of 1 out of NoOrg. And even with that, the gold is nearly neck and neck between the two teams, because they constantly are trying to swap up these lanes, trying to be able to catch them off guard. They're sacrificing some of those CS leads that they could have gotten for themselves. As now, Cody-san is in danger. Value wanted to be able to find that fight, but the fact that Babip and Your-san was nearby, Value's trying to be a little bit safer. Big forced to be able to give some reinforcements, so he's able to back out.
4 members up here for TSM Academy. They're looking to try and break open this turret before those turret plates fall away, but they've still got at least a minute for them to do that, so they're going to go ahead, hit that reset button, cash in on some mythic items to boot. We just saw Swordy pick up that Gale Force for himself and see if they can find turret plates or advantages elsewhere. The other thing that they can definitely look for is some bottom jungle priority, like we mentioned before, with the turrets being taken away. You have a lot of openings now to try and get some deep wards in there, to keep track of Onda, to keep track of Viper's rotations to and from these different lanes, to catch those resources in transition. And if you're able to find that, then you're going to have a lot of information on how NoOrg is positioning their 4-1 style and continuing to try and force you into these awkward lane matchups. But thankfully for TSM Academy, they're still in the driver's seat there. They're hitting those resets at the correct times. And the other thing too is we're pretty close to as well. And it looks like Keyword Harvester, if
Okay.
I am told correctly.
Yeah, I believe that is Night Harvester on that one, or it's Rocket Belt, but you know, it's
Don't
gonna be.
think it's.
I was about to.
I'm trying to think of the recipe
Night
for
Harvester.
Everfrost. I'm gonna see if I can find it for you.
I believe that's the recipe. It could. I mean, with that amplifying tome, it could. No, I think it's Night
no,
Harvester.
it's not. You need Lost Chapter for it. So
Okay. Yep. There we go.
nonetheless, yep.
That's why I'm like, I didn't think so. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Night Harvester as well. That just makes more sense with how you want to be able to play Gragas with that extra bit of movement speed. But now that the Rift Herald is going to spawn again, TSM Academy, once more, trying to make sure that they are the ones first on the call for the objectives. And it's going into that chaotic nature that you wanted to see out of them, Coco. They are the ones that are constantly trying to see if they can drive No-Org to play into their hands, and it's making it so that they are constantly at odds of what they want to be able to do. They want to be able to play the win lane, win game, but they're not able to set that up.
Yep. Force him into these awkward states. Great catch on your side.
Oh, look at that pick on a 5-fire as well. They blew him up. Run's done on to Big. Going to be able to get the job done with Killer. Instinct to pull him back. Again, double kill out of a bit.
And a great find there for Yurson, being able to get that flash knockup on Alistar and grabbing 2 kills for TSM Academy to help open this map and get some priority onto this Rift Herald objective. You can go ahead and take this with 2 if they want all 4 members of TSM Academy here to go ahead and claim Shelly. And from there, they can go ahead and apply it whichever they choose. Looking at mid lane, I would go ahead and prioritize that side, but let's just look at that catch once more. Big is trying to take a peek in for himself, but 5-Fire was just playing a little bit too close. And when Yurson saw that error, he immediately hit the go button. That is the killer instinct that we're looking out of this rookie from the PCS.
I love that kind of play. It's one of those things that always catches people off because you always expect, you know, the headbutt pulverize combo to be able to try to catch them off, but Flash pulverize so much better just because then you could use the headbutt to knock back a squishy target like 5-Fire into your teams, into their awaiting arms so they can eviscerate them. And with that, now they have yet another objective. They've got that Rift Herald. They have the pressure around these turrets. You can even see topside minions pushed in where Viper's going to lose a lot of that gold he would be able to get himself. So No-Org are trying to push back. They're trying to now be the first ones on the call for this upcoming dragon because they need something. They need to be able to stop the bleeding that's happening on the map.
They definitely do, but the thing is with this state that No-Org is in, TSM Academy does not need this objective. It is just one Ocean Drake. It does not matter in the big picture, in the grand scheme, so they can look for lane priority if they want. You can see them contesting for the mid priority as it is, because they want to use this Rift Herald to break it open. If No-Org disengages from this mid lane, it could cost 2 turrets for TSM Academy to take for themselves because of how much pressure and how much sieging capability they could try and push down if No-Org leaves them to their own devices.
Haunter waiting for that TP, trying to see if they can get this play, try to see if they can dive into the back line onto Viper. They know he's there with that control ward. They'll be able to get a little bit of damage. Headbutt onto the side of Viper with Rift Herald pop mid lane. Dragon still not started by either squad. All they're doing is waiting for Haunter to be able to get this flank on the other side of No-Org. They might know it. There it is. Viper's going to be able to deny that, so he's not going to be able to get into the pit as easily. He's trying to get the headbutt. Nope, he's trying to get the body slam. Not going to be able to get it. Instead, they're waiting to see. There it is. A flash away from Urson to be able to survive. He doesn't want to get caught out. Bopip still making sure that this Rift Herald is getting a lot of work done onto this tier 1. They've got the damage finally onto one member. Big is blown up backline and to try to be able to get away, but there we go. Get the double kill that they need to out of Sword with Viper taken down. Triple kill coming in from Sword. Value able to escape, but at what cost? What have they lost? Because TSM Academy firmly in control.
And what a great juggling of priorities there from TSM Academy. They knew they had the tempo control, but they're still looking for
nice Hex Flash. That is not going to be the quadra kill. I was hoping it would be the unofficial 4 sword. Instead, they got their 4th kill with Value, able to barely escape once more. We can look at that replay here in a second because we know the Dragon's going to be secured by TSM Academy. We know that they were able to get a convincing 4 for nothing there. TSM Academy, and it's all off the back of how Haunter's able to catch out Big like this.
Yeah, it was a great flank here from Haunter, but it was also just great tempo control and priority coming in from TSM Academy, knowing they had the upper hand, knowing that they could say, hey, if you just try and go in all in on this dragon, we can take 2 turrets away, and No-Org cannot take that bet. They cannot lose both of those mid lane structures to just win one single Ocean Dragon, and because of that, No Org is forced into this position where they will never come out on top. TSM Academy gets enough time to set up the proper flank, and Hanser giving the triple kill over to Sword, who has just been doing an immaculate job. Look at the damage dealt there from Hanser. That is how effective that flank is on that Gragas, and Sword and Cody-san were just able to reap the rewards.
And put themselves now, what is that, 4,000 gold over No Org? Getting a commanding lead here. Again, uncharacteristic out of the side of No Org, who are normally the ones with that 3,000 gold lead by 15 minutes, and they have to figure out what they want to be able to get from that.
At this point now, it's very hard for No Org to try and find a sense of priority through sheer brute force of will, just through how their composition is. Because at this stage, Anda is a little bit too squishy to really just try and run straight onto the backline to sort of separate the members of TSM Academy from working with each other and give that breathing space that 5 fire and value need to create that damage output in those scrappy skirmishes. And then also with Big is not tanky enough either to try and condense those fights for Anda, for Viper and 5 Fire to really pop off in any of those situations as well. So because of the lack of itemizations, because of that efficiency that they are currently behind on, TSM Academy has been able to find the upper hand, but all because of the early advantages that Babip and Sword were able to find in their own situations and creating that chaotic environment that TSM Academy needed to make sure that No Org was never able to formulate a correct plan heading into the mid-game.
And that's why I love this change from TSM Academy. You said like you wanted to see the change to play more like how Zoos were able to play into No Org to be able to beat them. That controlled chaos. And that is exactly what we're seeing throughout this game, where No Org don't understand what they need to be able to do when they have all this chaotic nature going throughout the map. What can they be able to find? Where can they have Viper flank? Utilize that Aatrox to be able to get into the backline onto Sword and Cody-san, when they too are the ones who are going to be diving onto 5 Fire, diving onto Value, so that even though you have this flank set up, Aatrox is nowhere near them.
You also don't have the survivability of a Gore Drinker Aatrox either. Yes, it is Stridebreaker. Stridebreaker did get a pretty big buff in patch 11.4, has made some waves in the top lane, but because of that, because of the more aggressive 1v1 style that Stridebreaker brings, it does lack that survivability that Gore Drinker would bring into those team fights. So that's another reason why it's really difficult for No Org to try and come back in these situations. That's just a little bit of an itemization discrepancy. It's very minor, but it is something that still has an effect in this game when you get down to the nitty gritty, when you are looking at those contests for Dragon, for mid priority, for these awkward flanks here and there where Viper really needs to wrestle to get into the thick of it. Come out on top, but Hanser also has cashed in on that Oblivion Orb for quite a while. He's been sitting on that, and that will literally help out on not only the side lane management, but also the survivability that No Org needs to try and get back into this game.
Yeah, because now Anda's going to struggle to be able to live long enough to be able to disrupt that backline like he wants to be. Same goes for Aatrox, since it's the Stridebreaker, as you mentioned, not the Core Drinker, but just going for anybody on the side of No Org, where they're trying to see if they can wait out the fights, be able to get a pretty good amount of burst damage coming in from someone like an Orianna, or even Value when he's able to get the full charge up on that bomb. But until they can get that moment, they're struggling to survive. They're struggling to at least thwart the damage that can come in from someone like Sword, someone like Cody-san, who are both going to be able to annihilate 5 Fire and Value.
So we've also come at another impasse, Magical. At the stage where the first TSM Academy, they weren't as efficient at as No Org when trying to find early games. Hold on just a moment. Okay, Sword's not caught out, but there is a TP from Hanser, so we'll have to hold my point.
Well, it looks like they're going to disengage this one. It is about 35 seconds until that dragon spawns up, and remember, that is Ocean Soul.
Yes.
There's not a single dragon that was secured by No Org. They've gotten 3 objectives so far this game because of those turrets, but it's been a struggle for them to get any of that. To be able to wrestle. They lost 2 Rift Heralds, they've lost 3 dragons, and now they might lose the soul.
I have to wait for the soul. I'll hold this discussion for a little bit, because what I was about to say is that TSM Academy does also struggle with closing out games. Getting this soul point might actually help them in that hurdle that they need to achieve in this second game of the series.
Ooh, it looks like TSM Academy not going to be punished for the fact that your son had just based as well. That had that been known by the side of No Org, you better bet they probably would have looked for something a little bit more aggressive, trying to see if they could capitalize on the fact there would have been a 4v5. Hanser's still waiting for this flank yet again, but so is Viper. Who's going to be able to get the better flank? Your son is backing up Hanser, as Viper is able to at least keep Babip on this side, trying to see if they can at least get onto Udyr, who wants to be able to dive into the backline, wants to be able to dive onto 5 Fire, onto Value, lock them down forever and a half so they're not able to do anything. But Viper You want to be the first one to pull the trigger. Still waiting in this dance.
Hanser being a little bit more disconnected from his team because he needs to have the element of surprise here. Viper can brute force his way in, but here we go with
your son. Looking for the explosive cast as well, but look at Viper into the back line. He hasn't been able to get the damage he needs to, but it's going to be the jump coming in from Valley, having to go golden to be able to survive. They want to be able to get the culling damage that they need to on him, but Viper is still alive, barely holding on. They've lost Ando on the other side, but Sword getting only a little bit of damage onto Valley, not going to be able to get enough to be able to take him down just yet. Instead, they've got the damage onto your son, trying to get back towards the team, having to use the headbutt to be able to get away with the flash coming in from 5-fire to disengage, but they're so damn low. How the hell did no org come out of this one ahead? They still got 5 members, and they got this dragon somehow, even though they were the ones who lost the jungler.
And it doesn't matter because both of the teams played very well at separating the fight and creating different pockets of damage and skirmishes for both of these teams to try and struggle for and wrestle for. Anda himself was a single pocket that he was able to try and challenge the dragon, not allow Babip or Hanser onto the back line of Norg, which was advancing onto Sword and Cody's son. And your son was trying to play referee, try and manage with the help of Sword to try and look for these different areas where they could try and get value, try and get 5-fire, but just enough of the summoners of the flash and the heal coming in to help divide that out. Also, Viper with that sheer brute force to try and get into that front line. Yes, there you can see that extra pocket. Hanser really struggled to try and get into this fight and eventually had to go away and just try and get a kill to come out on top. But because of that separation that Ando was able to provide, it allows this breath of fresh air for no org to reconvene, find different flanks, see the flank up there from Value to try and get this pinch, and 5-fire also to see the condensation coming in from TSM Academy, trying to make sure that they were also able to get that soul point, because it is a dire strait for them to try and grab that, because it really helps convert them into that dominant lead that they needed. So all of those different elements coming into play, no org coming out on top with a very well played objective control.
Sneaky Baron started up by TS Academy. Bully spotted out by Big, saying, alright, I have a sneaking suspicion that something's being started up here. They got TP out of Viper. You can always join in on these minions. There's going to be the TP right from the back line. Down below 50%. They've got to make the play happen soon, because TSM Academy might be able to get the objective as you get the Magnustorm in the back line coming in from Big, who's going to be able to go golden to be able to survive as Viper is going big, but they've got the killing spree out of Coing Sun, getting a little bit of damage, but not enough to be able to dissuade Shockwave on only
nice.
2 members. Golden Hanser, but he's still alive. Having the fight from no org, they were able to at least stop it for now. It's reset, but TS Academy are back onto the objective. They are not done just yet.
I don't think they have the survivability to try and disconnect from this Baron once more and then look for a fight. They need to finish this Baron now and then try and get out of dodge, but right now no org smelling blood in the water. It's only at 5,000 health, and TSM Academy, they cannot do this without losing multiple lives.
Look at that, they're backing out of that one, realizing that as well. Since the only pick was on the Big, not necessarily going to be the important target you need to be able to take out of that to make sure you're confident to take the objective.
Tripping over a couple of my words there, but no org also seeing if they could get TSM Academy to trip up and try and bite off more than they could chew. This Viper is able to help win back some jungle priority for no org to try and get that 4-1 split to happen once again. 5-fire is also catching those resources on the top side of the map, so there's no real wave that TSM Academy could work through if Baron or if a fight goes awry in TSM Academy's favor. At this point,
this has been wild. These fights have felt dead even between the two. Yet you see it's 10-1 on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
There's a 4,000 gold lead for TSM Academy, yet it feels like they are both at exactly the same amount.
So this is the impasse that I was trying to tease before we got into that soul point contention between the two teams of TSM and no org, is the fact that TSM really struggles with closing out games. Yes, they could get leads, maybe not massive leads, but once it gets to this position where they need to break open defenses of inhibitor turrets, find Baron baits, find Baron power plays that are optimal for their composition, they struggle in finding those situations, and that's where you see the discrepancy in game times between these two teams. No org has been able to complete games faster, 8 minutes faster than TSM. TSM, on average, finishes games at 36 minutes. So because of that, it gives a lot of time for no org to breathe, to scale up, to get value in 5-fire online, where they can just absolutely obliterate the backline of TSM Academy. So you are on a little bit of a timer because Sword has hit his massive power spikes. He's going to start to damper off a little bit because of how short-ranged he is and how much he needs to be in No Org's face to dish out that damage.
You can see the damage over time. The gold over time has pretty much stayed nearly even since about 18 minutes into this game. It's been 10 minutes since then, and yet it's stayed around the same. No Org still want to be able to fight. They know that they have to put everything here because that could be another soul attempted by the side of TSM Academy. They're going to be able to get a huge head above Pulverize onto Fire, but he's still alive. Trying to be able to get away, but they blow him up with the explosive cast with Hunter barely able to survive. Bip runs some job done. He's looking for Viper, but he's going to be able to get over the wall. Instead, it's going to be the Buster Shot used on him by Value to be able to get the rest of No Org out of here alive. But I feel like we've seen this before, where one member gets picked off by No Org, yet they're still the ones in control of the objective.
I just call this off. I think TSM is not in a good position to try and call this, but Hanser has found a flank. He's really trying to fight for this because they know if this is sole point, this is pretty much endgame for them.
Value over the wall, but still Viper sneaking. Oh no, Dragon! Dragon, you sell out! It sold him out. It told him where it is. That could be the soul picked up. It's going to be Smout and secured. They got the kill on the Value. The fight attempted by No Org, but it doesn't help them out at all. Dragon, you done diddly messed it all up for the side of No Org. You sold out Viper. You sold out the game. And TSM Academy are the ones now with the soul to push down mid.
And if Dragon didn't sell out Viper, I wonder how that fight would have changed. Because immediately when you get that information for free for TSM Academy, they just instantaneously collapse onto Viper. And he is forced to disengage and forced to be removed out of the fight and that sort of bubble that he was trying to create for Anta to actually challenge a 50-50 smite for that Dragon, for that soul. And because of that, all of the resources and planning goes awry for No Org. TSM Academy is able to take Soul, is able to take Baron, and Magical. This might be the first time that we really see all of the elements and stars align for TSM Academy to try and finish a game before 36 minutes.
Exactly, and they have the tools to do so right now. They've got Baron, they've got Ocean Soul. They're going to all back off, buy those items to get even more power spikes for themselves. I mean, you look at even Sword. He's got that Gale Force, got the Essence Reaver, has Last Whisper, just to be able to really take apart No Org. So even the little resistances they have aren't going to be enough.
Slow and steady wins the race, though, for No Org. So as long as they can control these waves and make sure that there is not a massive either double wave or double cannon wave or anything too ridiculous, Fire could possibly just be able to temper the siege that TSM Academy is going to dish out. Though not a lot. He will not be able to try and stop these tier 2s from falling. You can pretty much just brute force that one in the mid lane and the top side. But
when Anda just gets caught out like that, damage from Cody's son. He's blowing up. Rampage comes in from Hunter. As you can see, explosive cast knocking back in big, getting a dominating Cody's son who goes back in. He's got 3 kills already for the team, and they're looking for that final one on the Viper. It's a clean ace coming in from TSM Academy.
And they have a wave in the top side of the map to go ahead and parade down to the Nexus. They've got the damage to take down these turrets like they are paper mache. And this looks like with those death timers at 30 seconds still for No Org, this will be taken to a game 3 for TSM Academy, picking up a win in this series.
They finally got the fight they needed to with the help of a paid-off Dragon. It sold out Viper, and it won the game for TSM Academy as they had struggled in the mid-game. But once they got that advantage, they're able to crack it open wide, take game 2, force out the third one in this best of 3. Next one is winner takes all, who moves on in the loser bracket.
I'll have to make a disclaimer for all the other Dragons out there that we are not associated with TSM. That was a coincidence and not whatsoever any sort of collusion within the Rift. So unfortunately for them, though, for No Org, it is a 6-man powerhouse. Like we mentioned, if it wasn't for that resource being spotted out, they might have been able to try and challenge a 50-50. But there was also that pick on 5 Fire that TSM Academy was able to find. That was much more of the deciding factor in that situation, because you don't have a crucial point for that chaotic team fight composition for No Org to really try and thrive and try and challenge any of that conglomeration that TSM Academy was using to try and sort of brute force themselves into the Dragon pit. And because of all of those small little elements, they're able to pick that one up for TSM Academy. And also, hey, they were also able to finish in the 36-minute timeline. So they've finally been able to close out a game. Though at this stage, I think No Org's a little upset, and I don't think they're going to be able to get such a good early game performance next time around.
I might see them come out swinging a little bit harder out of the gate, trying to see if they can accrue those early leads. But I feel like we should let the desk break this down a little bit more, because it was a chaotic game, but it was a lot of fun to watch. So, Rafa, Alec Battery, I hope that you guys can be... Oh, they're not ready yet. Sorry, my bad. They're not ready just yet. We can talk a little bit more then. I thought Rafa was all ready. But it's okay. What we can talk about instead is the fact that looking at this game, and I want to kind of go back to the draft just a little bit, because I feel like No Org, they wanted to go for the salty run back, and that's always a problem, because when you're slightly caught off, it makes it difficult when you want to have nearly the same things, but then you get Illusion on the other side. Yeah,
very true. I think those points need to be addressed with some more professionals, with Jensen, Kelsey, and of course Rafa and all on themselves. So I think I'll go ahead and toss it already this time for game 2. So Rafa, Kelsey, and Jensen, tell me what went wrong.
Thanks, Coco and Magical. We we were kind of flabbergasted by Sword being able to have such a strong showing on this Lucian, but also just looking at Firefire, I don't know, Kelsey, if I can loosely quote your words, I don't think Firefire has ever played against a competent Lucian player before. So, because his inability to deal with the matchup definitely showed in this game too.
Yeah, I think he just walked up to try to contest waves that he realistically can't if Lucian understands his combo. Like using E in the auto, you just take way too much damage, right? So he had to concede so much of that matchup, and then we really saw like the strength of Sword being able to play that Lucian effectively. And as Jensen keeps hyping up the 2v2s and the 3v3s around mid and how they should be beneficial for TSM, once they're able to unlock that with a good mid matchup, we really see the results this game.
And I think that this is something just to further pile onto that. When we get the support enabled, when we get Yerson in these positions, he's creating all these opportunities with TSM. And not only is he facilitating TSM's early game, right? And I think that Yerson definitely, alongside with Sword, have been the highlight for me in this game. Finding all those picks. And I think that we talked about TSM. This is a team that struggles a little bit in the mid game. When it comes to the neutral objective control, they look very indecisive. They look very lost. And Yerson is the decisive voice to say that, hey, I'm Alistar. I'm going to go in. I'm going to knock up people. And then that sets up for the Gragas combo, that sets up for the Kaiser combo.
And we don't necessarily see these teams having super immaculate setups, but we do see Yurasan constantly looking for the good flank angles. With these types of short-range compositions, basically whoever pulls the objective and ends up getting flanked on first, or the range advantage will end up winning out. So you saw that consistently in the Dragon fight that Noark did actually manage to win. You had the Aatrox be able to zone off most of the team. A lot of the team bunched up on top of the Orianna QW combo while they were trying to pull the dragon. And also, in earlier dragon fights, you saw Yursan getting that really great angle with Alistar and being able to collapse on all of Noark bunched up, which just was probably the most significant fight in the game for me.
And I think, Alec, that's something that you pointed out as well, that Hanser definitely looked a lot more comfortable on this Gragas this time around. Obviously, we didn't see a similar split of the map where Anda had permanently put Hanser into no farm jail on the top side of the map. Babbitt was actually able to have access to that top quadrant of the map as well to ensure that he could relieve Hanser from any pressure, but also just the matchup in general into Gragas and Aatrox is nowhere near as punishing as Gnar into Kalista. And Hanser looked more proactive in these team fights leading up to the Dragon Control for TSM Academy.
Yeah, I'm glad that Hanser got to join us for game 2 of the series. It must have been great to be able to play the first game of the series for himself. I think he did all right. This was much better showing from the Winthrop series that we saw them bring out the Gragas in the beginning. So I'm looking forward to that. And if we continue to get more performances of where Hanser is able to take it against Viper, I think that'll be a lot more fun, especially from what we saw on Thursday. For this game, I'm completely looking at Sword. Yet again, I want to give kudos to this guy because he got a really great matchup for himself in mid lane. And he took absolute control of basically this entire game, not only against Firefire, who was kind of having a little bit of a bad time inside of the game, but this entire map felt like it was ran by Sword. Like the Lucian is everywhere. It's so hard once they get back in, and Value and Big I think were 100% shut down once we got into some of these team fights.
It goes completely back to what Jensen was saying and advocating for a TSM victory going forward into this game too. It's like we need to get a stronger mid jungle 2v2 situation set up here, because you know if they're going to continue focusing on this Udyr first pick, there's a moment where I heard Jensen and calls like, don't tell me we're doing a salty run back, guys, come on, we got to show some adaptation going into the second game draft. The first 3 picks, you're a little sweating there on your camera there, but then finally the picks came through, and then this time around, instead of a control mage like the likes of a Nazir or a Victor, it was that Lucian. Definitely something that has a little bit more proactivity, and not necessarily in terms of playmaking, but just the ability to go forward and be able to play forward and play for himself in this lane. I mean, this is a pick that, like, if you are not watching Sword solo queue games, this is by far one of his favorites to always rely on here.
Yeah, and for sure, I think that I'm seeing a lot more adaptation from TSM coming in. They really kind of are identifying what's going to win them this game going forward. What I want to see from NoOrg now is Firefire hasn't looked comfortable on the Orianna. Let's get him on something that is more tried and true for him. Obviously, a lot of people don't like playing the Zoe into Udyr, but if you can control the mid lane, then you can look for a lot more jungle 1v1s, which has really been sort of the saving grace for NoOrg in both games. If Anda can get an isolated 1v1, or if they can get a topside 2v2, then NoOrg have looked a lot stronger overall. The other thing that I think both teams can make improvements on, though, is the objective setups that we briefly alluded to before. Both teams are not really planning how they want to approach the dragon based on how their teams fight together. They're both kind of just phase thinking or going together, and then they sort of dance around the dragon because neither one of them wants to be the first to pull it, because they know if they get flanked on, it's not going to go well. You saw the really, really long Baron situation where Yursan was like trying to get a flank and TSM weren't using it well. So that's something that I can see cleaned up from the play on both sides.
I don't know if you were trying to get in on that conversation there, Dimitri, but it looked like you had something a little to contribute on the tail end of that.
I was just going to say that this game too was, I felt like from both teams, very, I want to say messy, right? We saw them, the fact that there's like a 4v5 and then NoOrg are somehow able to then get TSM to just kind of handshake and agree, fine, we'll just walk away from the Baron and we won't do it. We won't just immediately try to engage on you. It felt like that kind of killer instinct that we had criticized TSM Academy for having before is starting to show some teeth here in this game. And coming in, I kind of going on to what we were talking about, I'm looking at this and where exactly are NoOrg's unconventional level 1s, because they've been one of the only teams in amateur to really push for, hey, let's go for an early invade, or let's go for something that will destabilize the game, and especially for someone like Babip, put him on the back foot and make him uncomfortable inside of the rift. I think will do a lot of great things for this team, and I think that's what I at least am missing in this series from them. Yeah.
Now for the when it comes to the objective control dances, both of these teams were a little bit hesitant to go forward, and something that both Kelsey and Jensen have said also is that TSM Academy's lack of ability to proactively use Yursan in those flanks. There's a couple times where he had the Hex Flash, he had the angles to be able to set up, but then they just left Baron for some reason. Hopefully that is something that they are able to recognize quickly going into Game 3, as we are about a couple minutes out before we get ready for the final conclusion of this series. Now TSM Academy being able to come back 1-1, they are the ones with the momentum here, Jensen. I kind of want to throw back to you, thinking about if TSM Academy eat a Lucian ban, from NoOrg, is there something else that kind of fits the back pocket of Sword in the way that he was able to play Lucian again, or what's the adaptation plan here for TSMA?
Well, you see, the thing is, the big question is which side are they going to be on, right? If they're going to be on blue, I do believe they're going to be picking up Udyr again. That kind of limits the Zoe, Syndra options in the mid lane, which I think would be picks number 2 and 3 respectively. Once the Lucian is out of the picture, so he has to go into AD options, right? Then now we have to dig down to Source Champion pool. Does he look at the Tristana? Does he even look at considering, hey, maybe Set's an option in the mid lane, but if he goes for Set, then he's not able to do the same amount of damage, but it can still be a functionally similar role where he's playing to actively fight for the mid 2v2 to then facilitate the rest of the map.
So they are red side. Noarg will be picking blue side, and TSM are on red side. I don't know if that influences your choice, because I know you said you're dependent on that, but that'll be our side selection for this game.
Yeah, so ban Udyr, and then all of a sudden Syndra priority goes up, Zoe priority goes up. You can play a Graves, you can play a Olaf together with that for the strong 2v2.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to entertain the thought of if Sword goes down to a Twisted Fate pick, because if the Udyr ban comes out and then no org are wanting to take away something like the Olaf right off the table, assuming all the jungle bans are still the same with the likes of Aurelia on not on the table as well, Babbitt and Anda both like taking Nidalee into that Olaf, and so if you're able to supplement Haunter with the Renekton setup as well as Sword with a Twisted Fate, you have great setup for Babbitt to thrive, which is by far his most preferred jungle pick of on the Rift here. But it's the same story for Anda as well. So and the fact that we haven't had a chance to see either of these junglers go for that jungler in particular just means that Udyr and Olaf are still kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to jungle picks. But Game 3 is on the horizon, folks, and once again, Magical and Coco are going to close us out for the series as they take you away.